So now let us, in this, in the previous class we have discussed about the political causes of, the revolt. Like what are the political causes, how their policies interacted with people, soldiers, and other people, and how it made them to, rise for the revolt and all we have discussed. So in today's class, we will discuss about a different set of reasons. See, all these reasons which we have been discussing about are long-term reasons. So in a long run, they were responsible for the revolt. Among that, we discussed political causes. Now, in that connection, we are discussing the socio-religious causes. So the term socio-religious, it itself will say that the British have interfered with the society and the religions of our days. So, as they interfered with our society and also the religion which is part of society, they became reasons for the rise of 1857 revolt. So let us see how they interacted or how they interfered with our society. The British government's attempt to interfere in the social and religious life of Indians led to the widespread fear among the masses. See, those days, Indians were following a different set of religious practices. They had different set of belief systems. They had organized their society in a different manner. So, in that way, when they are living, the British have interfered in such things. They have interfered with the society and their rules. They have also interfered with the religious life of the Indians. See why they interfered, what was the how they interfered, and why it became angry. That and all we will see now. So it led to the fear among masses. So the group of masses means like majority of the people. The majority of people, when they observed British interfering with their traditions, customs, religions, and their kind of society, they understood that they might introduce their religion and they are spoiling their customs and practices. So they felt it as a threat. They felt it as a fear because the British are interfering in their traditions and they may wanted to, you know, introduce their own things. So people were afraid of the activities of British as they started interfering. So interference the social customs. So what kind of practices they interfered in society that we will see. Some of the social reforms introduced by British in India were aimed at improving the conditions of people. See, there were some people, like they were from India only. They were actually associated with British. They were with the company. They don't want, the dark age Indian practices. Some of the educated Indians, they want Indians to evolve. They want to come out of all the, dark age practices that they were practicing. So when they brought these issues to the notice of British, they tried to improvise the conditions of people. So when I speak about what kind of practices that people are following, you will come to know whether it is betterment for people or whether it is something not betterment for them. So in a way, the British were having an aim that they want to improve the conditions of people. However, while introducing such reforms, the feelings of people were not taken into consideration. So if they want to really develop people, well and good, they have to go to people, they have to convince them, then they can introduce, and then they can say that yes, this is the way why they want to improve. But what they did, they simply thought, they wanted to educate Indians for their own purposes. To educate them, they have to get them out of their dark age practices. So, to get them out of dark age practices that they do in the name of religion, they started making certain laws. That laws were called reforms. Okay, changes. Reforms means changes. And they brought certain laws or acts to bring such changes in life of people, like abolition of sati in 1829. The abolition of sati act was brought in 1829. See, according to sati, If husband dies, even the wife is also who is alive is also kept in fire and burnt alive. So they feel it as a great admiration for the husband. They feel no, it's a great sacrifice that a woman has to do for her husband. So it's an age-old practice. It actually started in a particular way, but it was misinterpreted, and no, they understood it like this. So they started burning alive even the even the wives along with the dead husband. The British thought this is a very cruel practice, and they wanted to prohibit this. How they prohibited? By bringing a law, which is called Abolition of Sati Act and an introduction to Widow Remarriage Act 1856. So in those days, women in India were, like they were treated inferior. They were not having, any kind of rights and all. So generally, what happens in a family, if one or many girls are there, at a very young age, when the girl is 6 years, 10 years, they do marriage to a very old man. And this fellow, if he dies, then the girl who reaches by this time, maybe some 20 and all, she has to become a widow. And once her husband dies, she cannot do again marriage. Remarriage was not allowed for widows in those, girls those days. So this was felt as very cruel, and they abolished this by Widow Remarriage Act. In bringing these acts, there was even contribution of Indians. There were some Indian educated people who were associated with the Britishers, and they were trying to bring this kind of issues to British, so that they want Indians to come out of this kind of dark practices, this kind of evil practices. So they Britishers even want Western education to be given to girls, which was not welcomed by the masses. That means people there. Why they don't want to, like allow the Britishers to do all these things? Because these are all their customs, and who are these people to interfere with our customs? This kind of belief system that was very strong in those days was, it also created a kind of negativity against the East India Company among the people in society. So, coming to the other reasons, apprehensions about modern innovations. So, in the socio-religious causes, the British interfered with the customs and traditions of Indians, and they have gained a lot of negativity among the group people in society. Then what they did, there were many apprehensions about modern inventions. So the British were they were trying to bring some kind of innovative things in India for their own purpose. For example, like they introduced railways in India, they introduced telegraph in India for communication. So this is not for the development of Indians, but to speed up their exploitation process of India. What they did, they introduced a transport system like railways and a communication system like telegraph. And on these modern scientific innovations that were introduced by British in India, people had certain misconceptions. They had some kind of misunderstanding. What was that? People were suspicious of introduction of modern innovations like railways and telegraph. So they were afraid, they were suspicious. That means they were looking that in a very questioning way. Why they are introducing this kind of railway networks to India? Why they want telegraphs in India? So in a very suspicious way, Indians were looking. There were rumors that the telegraph poles were erected to hang those who were against the British rule. See, telegraph poles are nothing but no, they're like modern day we have current poles, right? Electricity poles. So in the same way, those days, no, poles will be set up and the cable will be tied to it so that they serve as a means of communication. So what they did, whenever they erected a pole, the people know they lack of due to lack of education and lack of knowledge, they believed that these poles were erected to hang Indians. Whoever has done some mistake, no, they wanted to hang Indians on these poles. But usually these poles are for telegraphic cable, which is used for communication. And Similarly, Orthodox Indians noted that the railway compartments, the higher caste and lower caste, were made to sit side by side. They believed that British had introduced such practices to defy their caste and religion. So when they introduced railways, see how the railways run generally through compartments, right? So in this compartment, seatings will be arranged, and what the people believed that when they wanted to use this for transport, these all people are allowed inside the compartments. And Orthodox Indians, that means they will not change. They have certain kind of very old belief practices, and they will never change from such kind of beliefs. They are called Orthodox people. So these Orthodox people believed that the British wantedly made railway cabins for, and the seatings were made wantedly, equally for upper and lower caste. The upper caste does not want to sit with lower caste. They feel it as, they had a lot of caste feeling, which was an evil practice. But when these people introduced railways in the compartments, the higher caste people, they have no other option. They have to sit with other low caste people also. There is no kind of discrimination between higher and lower in the railways by British. So the higher caste people felt that they wanted to, interfere in their caste system and religion, and no wantedly they are doing something with the religion. And policy of racial discrimination. So British officers were, looking down the Indians. So they were generally looking down the Indians. So what happened here? They feel that they Britishers were very advanced. Of course, they're advanced, but what they had this kind of feeling that the Indians were very like uncivilized people. They were less evolved people, and they look the Indian race as with discrimination, with a lot of discrimination. They used to look Indians. They believed that they were superiors to Indians and followed a policy of contempt. So what they did, see, if you look at the picture, they feel that the Indians are just inferior to them. They are just like servants. So, they used to ask, very, like very unfair works and all. They used to exploit their works, and also, no, they never treated them properly. They used to, treat them very harshly. Ill treatment they used to give because they feel that they are inferior people. They dubbed Muslims as cruel and unfaithful. So even with Islamic people, they they started that by looking at the practices and all. They said they're very cruel people and unfaithful people. They started labeling the religions in India. Some Europe officers ill-treated and insulted Indians. So in many ways, they started insulting. Such acts of unjust discrimination, whenever this kind of discrimination showed by the British officers, slowly it alienated. That means people started feeling these company people or British people as aliens. They are no somebody who is not at all related to them. They are outsiders who are unnecessarily involving in their affairs. So slowly the Indian group of people, our Indian masses, they started disliking the Britishers. So another reason in was corruption in the administration. As you know, by this time the East India Company took over many parts of territories in India, and the police and officials who were working for the British, they became completely corrupt. So they got away with crime, but the common man was looted, oppressed, and tortured. So with the corruption, uh, coming into these kind of officials and police, they started torturing people for money and other kind of other kind of things. So they even were ready to suppress, like give away with crime. Suppose if somewhere crime happens, it is a duty of the police official to handle that crime. I mean, to handle or to, you know, protect people from such kind of crimes. But what they did, whoever has done such crimes, they started leaving them by taking bribes. Okay. So this kind of corruption and looting of money, it also created a certain kind of unhappiness and this kind of displeasure among the people and oppression of the poor. See, they tried to grab whatever they can from the poor. The complex judicial system enabled the rich to oppress the poor. So what happened? Where the rich people, they are generally close to the British people, and what they do, these rich people, in fact, again, they try to get taxes and other money from poor people. So to impress the British, these rich people, what they did, they started collecting lots and lots of taxes from poor people. If they don't pay, they used to do flogging, torturing them, and imprisonment. What is flogging? Taking a whip and beating them. You might have seen this is a whip is nothing but with a handle and a long kind of leather thread with which if you beat, it hurts a lot. So such kind of flogging was there, torture was there for the cultivators especially. Majority of the population was following cultivation, and what they did, they used to give some kind of loans to farmers. They know very well that they cannot pay, and to collect again that money as well as taxes, they used to torture these cultivators and ask them, even though suppose if you can look at the picture here, there might be a drought in that village, there was no cropping at all that season, still the British officers will go to that village, collect taxes. If they request now that they can't pay because of drought and all, still they torture them, they keep them behind prison. All such kind of cruel practices they did towards the poor cultivators because their inability to pay the arrears of rent for the land they took, and now interest on the debts were quite common. As middlemen increased, they used to give money to farmers with high interest. They know that they can't pay. If some drought and all occurs, that even they can't pay interest to the debts, but still they were tortured. Thus the growing poverty. So with all such things, what happened? Slowly people gave up agriculture and they fell into poverty. When they fell into poverty, now slowly when every section of a village by village, when they started going into poverty because of such torture done by Britishers, then they also got slowly certain anger is getting built in the people. So it also became a very important reason. So coming to the activities of missionaries. So who are these missionaries? The missionaries are the people who generally, I'm talking about here British, so I'll say they are the people who follow a religion called Christianity, and these people, the missionaries, their job is to convert everyone into their Christianity so that they wanted to expand their religion. So in terms of religion also, the British have interfered. So the British, you know, want different from Indians in race, religion, and sentiments. So the British were generally they had different set of religious practices. They had different race. They belonged to different race and sentiments. In 18th century, the British showed a friendly attitude towards Indian religions. So in the very beginning days of their entry into India, they were very friendly with all the religions in India. They never tried to impose Christianity in India. In fact, they were very close with all religions and they were respecting all the other religions. They had no particular zeal for their own religion, and company even acted as a trustee of some Hindu temples. I'm talking about how they have begun their entry in India. When they were, when the British entered India through East India Company, they were not having any kind of idea to convert Indians into Christianity. In fact, they served even certain Hindu temples also. If a temple is there, and they acted as even trustees, that means they are the people who maintains all the wealth of the and administration of that temple. In that way they used to show respect towards Hindu religions and other religions in India. However, in the 19th century, attitude underwent a change. So slowly, in a span of 100 years, they changed their attitude towards religions in India. They began to interfere with the local religious and social customs. This we studied. Slowly, they started interfering with the customs and religion of India. They denounced idol worship. They said idol worship is a not good practice. It is not a scientific thing. So they started propagating that idol worship is something it is not realistic. So they said leave idol worship, and they dubbed local beliefs as ignorance. And they started propagating to innocent people, saying that whatever sentiment and beliefs that you are practicing, whatever Indian practices that you have, they are all local beliefs. They are not realistic. And out of ignorance, you are all doing that. This kind of, washing the brains started by they started brainwashing the Indian masses with such kind of statements. And in 1813, after 1813, there was an increase both in the numbers and activities of the Christian missionaries. So after 1813 in India, a lot of missionaries came India, and they were trying to see here in the picture, if you look, a Christian missionary converting a people in, the fishery people into Christianity. If you look at here, this is sea coast, and these people belong, the fishermen and all, the community is fishermen community. Generally, in those days, this community was ill-treated due to caste system in India. The higher caste never they used to look them properly. So what Britishers did, whatever the higher caste has not given them, the Britishers started offering them. If higher caste people are not allowed into temples, Christian missionaries came to these fishermen and said, "We will allow into our church." If higher caste in India does not allow these people to educate, the British said, "We will give you English education." So with this kind of personal benefits, they started converting all the masses of Indians into Christians. Indians thought that government was supporting missionaries who would convert them to Christianity. So some of them thought that this is, they're helping people for social service in the name of social service. But majority of Indians felt that they are trying to convert them into Christianity. So in this way, the missionaries also, partly responsible for the revolt. So the people of India also had fears regarding Western education. So let us know before that, before understanding what is Western education and all, what kind of education does India has those days? So we generally had a very traditional kind of education where no we used to learn Sanskrit, okay, if it is Hindus, and if you take Muslims, they used to have madrasas. So madrasa is a place where generally they recite Quran, they learn the phrases and sentences of Quran, and they try to learn their holy scriptures. So mostly the religions in India by that time, Hinduism and Islam, they had their holy books called Bible, sorry, Bhagavad Gita and Quran. So Bhagavad Gita they have to learn in Sanskrit, and Quran they have to learn in Arabic. So this was the most traditional educational system followed in those days. So what they did, the Western system of education was introduced, a number of schools, and in 1829, Bengal government established an English class in Calcutta Madrasa. So the British started interfering with the education system of Indians. So in Bengal, what they did, there was a madrasa college where the Muslims learn only about the Quran and other teachings. They introduced English class. So they started introducing a subject called English in this madrasa college. So which made the Muslims to get hurt with the sentiments. And English classes were also introduced in Banaras Sanskrit College. So a college which is generally meant for traditional Hindu literature studies and all, the mythological scriptures and all, where there was also introduction of English. So this is the Calcutta Madrasa College in modern day. It looks like this. It is some hundreds and hundreds of old. And this is Banaras Hindu College, okay, Sanskrit College. So these are the modern pictures of those colleges. In these colleges, the Britishers have introduced English as a subject, and the shifting of emphasis from Oriental learning to Western education was not received well by people. The people who were learning traditional kind of subjects in these colleges and madrasas, when they got introduction of English, they felt hurting. They don't want to lose their traditional subjects, and they doesn't want to go for English as subject. The pundits and all the people who are the teaching faculties in all these colleges and all, they even felt that it is an attempt to discourage traditional Islamic and Hindu studies. The British are wantedly introducing English as language so that the people of India should discontinue their practice of Islamic and Hindu studies. Their religious studies they wanted to make Indians to discontinue, and they wanted to make them learn their Western education. If they learn English and all, they can convert them easily into Christianity so that they can learn Bible and all. They're suspecting that the aim of Western education was not to promote literature. Suppose you think that Western education is good, but the intention of British is not that. They don't want Indians to really get English education and progress in their life, but they want the children to become Christians. So from childhood itself, if English is introduced, then the children can easily understand Bible, and by the time they grow up, they can easily convert them into Christians. So this was a plan that Britishers has made. Once they culturally and religiously they get converted, then it is not that easy to control the territory. So not only controlling the territories and kingdoms, they wanted to change the entire system of people in India so that it becomes easy for them to control people. So this also created a lot of fears among Indians, and also later building up of this anger which they showed it in revolt. So another important religious interference that the British did was taxing the religious places. So if you take Hindus, they have their own important religious places. Take Muslims, they have their own important dargahs and mosques. So they started interfering there also. The religious sentiments of Indians were hurt by official policy of taxing lands belonging to temples and mosques. So those days, if there is a temple, okay, then what happens? For example, if it is a temple, then the kings, they used to give certain lands to temples for financially making the temple strong. They used to donate some lands. They are called temple lands. And for even mosques, they used to give certain lands. The Nawabs, and the Muslim rulers, they used to donate some land so that the mosque will run without any lag of funds. What the Britishers started doing, they started, and the rulers who donated this land, they don't collect any taxes from that kind of lands. The Indian rulers who donated this kind of lands to temples and mosques, they never collected any taxes in return. But what Britishers started doing, they started collecting even taxes from this kind of lands. So this made the religious sentiments of people also to get hurt. Earlier, no, those lands were exempted from taxation by rulers, and the families dependent on these lands began to propagate the British were trying to undermine the religions of India. So when lands were given like this, agriculture activity used to take place. When agriculture activity is there, some families will be dependent on this. When these families were asked to pay taxes by Britishers, they felt that this is a threat to the religion. So they wanted to, you know, take away these lands slowly in future by showing the reason that they're not paying taxes properly and all. So the people who are maintaining these lands, in fact, the families who are looking after the lands, they believed that the religions were not looked properly by Britishers in India. They're undermining it. That means not looking with a proper status and law of property. The other and last reason. The Religious Disabilities Act 1850. This act was an important act introduced by British. What was the purpose of this act? So it changed the Hindu law of property. So what is Hindu law of property? Generally, if a father is there, okay, he gives some money and in the form of dowry, and he gets the daughter married. And what about son? If he has a son, whatever property that was earned by father, okay, it will go to son automatically. Okay, this is as per Hindu law. Whoever is a Hindu, they get this kind of property from their parents. Suppose if this boy gets converted to other religion, he is no more a Hindu, right? So if he is no more a Hindu, how can Hindu law is applicable onto him? So what happens if this boy gets converted into Christianity, then this he is not eligible to get the property of his father. Understanding this kind of a problem, what Britishers did, they brought Religious Disabilities Act of 1850. According to this act, if father is there, son is there, and if father is Hindu and son is converted into Christianity, then even though he gets converted to other religion, he still gets the eligibility rights to the property of the father. So what by this what you understand? They wanted to promote Christianity. See, many people may feel that no, if I go into Christianity and all, I may lose property of my father. So they may not go into Christianity. So they by this act, what they got that permission. According to this act, nobody can deny the rights of property from father. Even though the son changes religion, he still gets his property. So the son will easily get converted into Christianity. So to facilitate this kind of immoral practice, they brought this Religious Disabilities Act in 1850. The Hindus regarded this as an incentive to give up one's religious faith. If somebody is giving up his religion, he used to think earlier because he will not get property. But now, according to this act, even though he changes his religion, he is still eligible for the property of his father. So he happily changes now. So in every aspect they try to change the peoples of a religion. So in such all deeper root level, the Britishers have made certain changes and made they became reason for resentment or anger of many people in India or many sections in India.